After prompting RJ to pursue Electra, Ivy threatens Daphne and Dylan comforts Will. Today on Bold and the Beautiful, Dylan learns shocking news, and Ivy puts further of her plan in place. Will opened up to Dylan about the kiss and Daphne realized Ivy manipulated Electra and Will. In the Forrester exchange, Daphne puts the pieces together as Electra explains how her letter to Will went missing and her choker was left in its place. Daphne flashes back to see Ivy swipe Electra's letter. She tells Electra she knows what heartache is such like and she'll do whatever she can to help her. After she leaves, Electra tries to work but just gapes at her phone and blinks. In the design office, Ivy and RJ agree that Will isn't good of Electra. Ivy rails about Dylan living with Will despite Electra's expostulations. She wants to cover her bastard but claims she'd no way intrude in her life. As she works, they talk about how important RJ cares for Electra. She has all the rates he'd been looking for, and he has an appetite to cover her. He admits he's formerly made a mistake by kissing her. Ivy laughs and asks how her bastard took it. RJ says she made it clear it can't be again. He respects that. Ivy urges him to hang in there. She has the feeling Electra could use someone like him around. Once he leaves, Daphne shows up and fills her in on how worried Electra is. She brings up the letter. Ivy glosses over it. Daphne admits she saw her take the letter. "What are you up to?" she asks. Ivy doesn't like this imputation. She used to like Will but he keeps letting her bastard down. He indeed slept with another woman. Daphne says she needs to leave them to figure this out. None of this is proper. Ivy complains, ordering her to stay out of it. Daphne doesn't want to get involved in any drama. Ivy tells her not to. She's Electra's guardian and Will is unhappy. Daphne says her bastard is devastated and that's directly because of Ivy. "Don't you dare tell anyone about this, Daphne." Ivy warns to the each house. Will tells Dylan that he caught Electra kissing RJ. He was so hurt. But he didn't garrote RJ. The Forresters would fire him if he beat Ridge's son's burrow. Either Electra wasn't forced. Why did she turn her back on him so snappily? Dylan blames herself for all the problems that have chanced him. She didn't do anything wrong and knows he didn't moreover. He agrees but Electra still believes her aunt over them. Still he can't condemn Ivy for Electra kissing RJ. He repeats that Dylan isn't at fault. He adds that she doesn't have to go. She thinks it may be for the stylish but he wants her there. Will asks her not to tell anyone about the kiss. He can't believe that Electra has abandoned him for another man. RJ returns to the exchange to check on Electra. He wants to be there for her. She says Will has made his choice. RJ says it was the wrong bone. RJ thinks she's too beautiful to be in gashes. He repeats that he's there for her and her heart is safe with him. Will calls to say he's not coming into the office. He needs to get his head together. She can hear Dylan in the background and assumes he wants to spend the day with her. Will tells her that he loves her but can't deal with this. She hangs up and also takes off her choker. Ivy comes by. Electra heartbreaks about how she doesn't understand any of this. Will is spending the day with Dylan. Ivy keeps saying this isn't proper at all but she can always count on her Aunt Ivy. Daphne walks by and thinks, it's not right. Back at the sandhouse, Dylan snuggles up to moping Will and tells him she's there for him. Next week on B&B. "I've a way to make you feel more," Dylan says. "Oh yeah," asks Will. They kiss. "It's not proper at each," Ivy tells Electra. "It was so amazing. Over and over." Sheila gushes to Taylor about coitus with Cleric. "I tried to recommit myself to Sheila, but all I could suppose about was you," Deacon tells Taylor. Deacon and Taylor kiss. On the coming emotionally charged occasion of the Bold and the Beautiful, the fallout from Ivy's manipulation begins to ripple outward in ways no bone can completely control, tensing its grip on everyone from the Forrester design office to the Spencer Sandhouse. What began as an advised attempt by Ivy Forrester to cover her bastard has now grown into an involved web of secretiveness, heartache, and treason that threatens to explode at any moment. As Electra Forrester spirals deeper into confusion and despair, believing that Will Spencer has chosen another woman over her, Ivy doubles down on her strategy, induced she's steering her bastard toward a better future, indeed if it means silencing anyone who stands in her way. Meanwhile, Daphne Rose finds herself in a moral extremity after witnessing Ivy steal Electra's sincere letter, and Dylan becomes an unanticipated emotional anchor for a devastated Will. their bond heightening in ways that could permanently alter the romantic geography. At Forrester Creations, the pressure is suffocating. Electra sits firm at her workstation, replaying every recent moment in her mind. The missing letter haunts her. She remembers pouring her heart into that concession, hopeless to clear the air with Will and explain her fears about Dylan living at the sand house. Rather of a response from Will, she set up her choker in its place, a symbol of love turned into a silent blameworthiness. Now, knowing what Daphne suspects, the pieces nearly fit together, but Electra cannot bring herself to imagine that her own aunt orchestrated the heartache. Ivy enters with rehearsed countenance, offering comfort wrapped in subtle manipulation. She reinforces the narrative she's been casting Will as reckless, immature, unable of fidelity. She emphasizes that it's not proper for him to spend the day with Dylan, letting that expression loiter as if it carries moral authority. Electra heartbreaks openly, torn between love and emotion, while Ivy strokes her hair and assures her she deserves better. From the doorway, Daphne watches, her heart burning. She knows Ivy's interpretation of protection is poisoning the verity, yet Ivy's before advising echoes in her mind stay out of it. In the design office, R.J. Forrester wrestles with his own complicated feelings. Encouraged by Ivy's asseveration that Electra needs someone stable and defensive, R.J. convinces himself that pursuing her is opportunistic but noble. He renews their kiss the moment he crossed a boundary he promised not to cross. Though Electra claimed it could no way be again, he saw vulnerability in her eyes, and Ivy's words energy his stopgap that tolerance will be awarded. R.J. returns to the exchange, offering Electra consolation that her heart would be safe with him. His sincerity contrasts sprucely with the chaos girding her. When Will calls to say he won't come into the office, claiming he needs space, Electra hears Dylan's voice in the background and assumes the worst. Her heartache hardens into abdication. After hanging up, she removes her choker. A quiet but ruinous gesture that symbolizes her belief that what she participated with Will may formerly be over. At the Spencer Sandhouse, Will's anguish is raw and undressed. He confides in Dylan that seeing Electra kiss RJ felt like a punch to the gut. He admits he wanted to lash out but restrained himself, knowing the professional and domestic consequences. Further than wrathfulness, he feels abandoned. Dylan listens hardly, her empathy genuine. She blames herself for moving by, for inadvertently getting a wedge between them, but Will insists she did nothing wrong. Still, the emotional propinquity between them grows heavier. When Dylan says she might leave to ease the pressure, Will snappily asks her to stay. He doesn't want to face the emptiness alone. Their participated vulnerability creates a charged silence that ultimately leads to a kiss. Tentative at first, also more certain. It's not born from manipulation but from comfort, from the need to feel understood. Yet that single moment may confirm Electra's worst fears if she ever learns the verity. Back at Forrester, Daphne confronts Ivy intimately, formerly more. She cannot ignore what she saw. Ivy's response is icy and guard. She reframes her hindrance as motherly duty, criminating Will of discourteousness and recklessness, indeed representing his night with another woman as evidence of his unworthiness. Daphne argues that Electra's desolation is directly tied to Ivy's deception. The battle escalates until Ivy delivers a thinly veiled trouble, revealing the verity would only hurt Electra more. Ivy insists she's shielding her bastard from a man who would inescapably fail her again. Daphne walks down shaken, realizing that exposing Ivy might be the only path to restoring honesty, but doing so would crump a family reproach. Meanwhile, romantic complications consolidate away. At Il Giardino, Sheila Carter gleefully recounts intimate details of her revivified passion with Deacon Sharp, important to Taylor Hayes' discomfort. Sheila's enthusiasm ice over the top, nearly territorial, as if she senses Deacon's faltering commitment. Her bravado masks instability. Latterly, when Deacon confesses to Taylor that despite trying to recommit to Sheila, he couldn't stop allowing about her, the emotional turnabout shifts dramatically. Their kiss is filled with craving and undetermined history, setting the stage for yet another explosive triangle. However, the consequences could be disastrous if Sheila discovers the treason. As the week closes, every plot teeters on the edge of disclosure. Electra stands at a crossroads, ignorant that her aunt finagled the very pain she's trying to escape. Will is drifting toward Dylan, believing Electra has chosen someone differently. RJ remains hopeful, ignorant he may be a pawn in Ivy's larger scheme. Daphne grapples with the weight of verity versus fidelity. And across city, old dears reignite while dangerous secrets poach. In true Bold and the Beautiful fashion, love and deception are intertwined so tightly that untangling them may bear heartache on an indeed lesser scale. The question brewing over Los Angeles is simple yet ruinous when the verity eventually shells. Who'll be left standing and who'll lose everything they were trying so desperately to cover? As the storm shadows gather over Los Angeles, the emotional foreshocks of Ivy's hindrance begin to fracture connections in ways no bone can prognosticate on the Bold and the Beautiful. What once sounded like a precisely managed situation is slipping through Ivy Forrester's fritters, indeed though she refuses to admit it. She remains convinced she's the only rational voice in an ocean of impulsive youthful suckers. Yet the more she insists that everything she's done is for Electra's own good, the more her conduct acts a calculated crusade to control the narrative of her bastard's life. The following morning at Forrester Creations, the air feels heavier than usual. Sidekicks brute, seeing pressure without knowing its source. Electra Forrester arrives looking pale and exhausted. She slightly slept, visited by the image of Will with Dylan, and by RJ's gentle asseveration that she deserves someone better. She tries to concentrate on sketches, but her mind drifts constantly to the unanswered questions. Why would Will ignore her letter? Why would he give up so fluently? And why does everything feel slightly out, as if an unseen hand rearranged the pieces before she could understand the game? Across the hall, RJ Forrester watches her from a distance. He authentically cares, but he also senses occasion. Ivy's words echo in his head. Electra needs stability. She needs someone who won't let her down. RJ convinces himself that stepping in now isn't treason, it's deliverance. He approaches her office with coffee and soft consolation. Electra thanks him, appreciating his presence but unfit to repay his romantic energy. Her heart is still tangled with Will Spencer, no matter how deeply she feels betrayed. Meanwhile, at the Sandhouse, Will sits alone on the yard long after Dylan leaves for a meeting. The kiss they participated lingers in his studies. It wasn't premeditated. It wasn't meant to wound Electra. It was two hurting people adhering to comfort. Yet guilt creeps in. He renewals the moment he caught Electra kissing RJ, flashing back the desolation in her eyes before pride forced her to pull down. Commodity about it doesn't sit right. She looked equivocal, not triumphant. He begins to wonder whether they both replied too snappily, allowing hypotheticals to mandate their conduct. Back at Forrester, Daphne Rose struggles with her heart. The flash of Ivy slipping Electra's letter into her bag refuses to fade. Daphne knows that revealing the verity could shatter Electra's trust in her aunt, but withholding it feels like sharing in the taradiddle. She decides to test Ivy subtly, asking again about the missing letter in front of Electra. Ivy deflects easily, suggesting maybe it was lost or no way transferred at each. Electra's shoulders slump further. Daphne notices the computation behind Ivy's calm address, and realizes the deception is deeper than she first allowed. Ivy, seeing Daphne's growing defiance, confronts her intimately formerly more. This time her tone is colder, edged with warning. She insists that Will's track record speaks for itself. His closeness to Dylan, his impulsive responses, his history of emotional snares. Electra deserves thickness. Ivy says firmly, however, I will, if I've to guide her down from chaos. Daphne challenges her description of guidance, criminating her of manipulation. Ivy's eyes narrow. She reminds Daphne that family fidelity matters, and that exposing this would only beget more pain. The recrimination is clear: stay silent, or face consequences. Away, romantic pressures consolidate in a different corner of Los Angeles. At Il Giardino, Sheila Carter ploys in her renewed connection with Deacon Sharp. She brags about their passion with a triumphant radiance, determined to stake her claim. But beneath her enthusiasm lies fear. She senses his moping passions for Taylor Hayes. When Deacon latterly confesses to Taylor that he tried to recommit to Sheila but couldn't stop allowing about her, the emotional stakes shoot. Their kiss is filled with undetermined history and dangerous craving. It's a treason that could unleash Sheila's fury if discovered. Back at the Sandhouse, Dylan returns to find Will restless and distant. He admits he's starting to question how everything entwined so snappily. Dylan encourages him to talk to Electra directly rather of assuming the worst. She doesn't want to be the wedge between them. Indeed, if their kiss felt real. Will appreciates her honesty. For the first time, he considers the possibility that someone might have told Electra's perception of events. Ivy's patient disapprobation flashes through his mind. Could she have obtruded ever? The study unsettles him. At Forrester, Electra overhears Ivy telling a coworker that youthful love is frequently deceived, and that occasionally elders must intermediate. The comment stings. Latterly, when RJ gently suggests she deserves someone who won't beget drama, she snaps defensively, averring she can handle her own choices. It's the first crack in Ivy's precisely constructed influence. Electra may be agonized, but she isn't unable of independent study. Daphne, inspired by Electra's response, decides the verity cannot remain buried. She arranges to meet Will intimately. When they sit down, she hesitates, apprehensive of the explosive eventuality of her words. She doesn't reveal everything outright but hints that there may have been hindrance regarding the letter. Will's confusion deepens into suspicion, however, and he no way saw it. Also, someone designedly kept them piecemeal. If Electra did try to reach him, the consummation hits him hard. They've both been replying to deficient information. As the week builds toward another dramatic climax, alliances shift subtly. RJ senses that pushing too hard could boomerang. Dylan steps back emotionally, unintentional to subsidize on Will's vulnerability. Electra begins to question why Ivy seems nearly relieved by her heartache. And Ivy herself starts to feel the ground fluctuate beneath her plan. Secrets infrequently stay buried in the Forrester world, and this one carries the implicit to strike trust permanently. In the final moments of the occasion, Electra stands alone in the exchange after hours, gaping at the choker she removed. She turns it over in her hand, flashing back every pledge she and Will changed. Across city, Will scrolls through old dispatches, searching for clarity. Daphne watches Ivy from a distance, determined to cover Electra from farther manipulation. And Ivy, induced she's still in control, fails to see how close she's to exposure. Because on the bold and the beautiful, verity has a way of surfacing when least anticipated, and when it doesn't just mend broken hearts. It shatters visions, redraws commitment, and forces every character to defy the cost of the choices they made in the name of love. The coming chapter unfolds with the kind of laggardly burning intensity that has defined the bold and the beautiful for decades, where secrets don't just poach, they reshape fates. Morning sun pollutants through the altitudinous windows of Forrester creations, but the brilliance does little to lift the heaviness hanging over the design bottom. Electra Forrester arrives beforehand, determined to lose herself in work before anyone can ask questions about her fluffy eyes or distant expression. She places her choker, the one she removed after Will's call, outside her office hole, as though hiding it'll dull its meaning. The essence glints for an alternate before fading into shadow. She tells herself she's done weeping. But grief doesn't follow schedules. Across the structure, Ivy Forrester is formerly in the design office reviewing fabric tapes. Her countenance is immaculate. To anyone watching, she's simply a defensive aunt concerned about her bastard's fragile heart. Outside still, she's calculating her coming move. Daphne's battle rattled her further than she lets on. However, everything unravels if Daphne addresses. Ivy reassures herself that Daphne values discretion too important to spark a reproach, but mistrustfulness lingers. When Daphne Rose walks in, the temperature drops perceptibly. Daphne doesn't desolate time on amenities. She asks how Electra slept. Ivy answers easily. Not well, but heartache builds character. The phrasing makes Daphne blench. There's commodity nearly clinical about the way Ivy speaks of her bastard's pain, as if it's in trial rather than an emotion. I saw her take off the choker, Daphne says still. Ivy pauses, only a bit of a alternate. Maybe that's for the stylish. For the stylish? Daphne reprises, unbelief threading through her voice. Ivy turns, expression establishment. Will Spencer is unstable. He invites chaos into her life. Living with Dylan? That alone speaks volumes. The name hangs between them. Meanwhile, at the Sandhouse, Will Spencer stands on the sundeck gaping at the horizon. He hasn't slept, moreover. The kiss with Dylan plays in his mind, not with remorse exactly, but with confusion. It felt comforting. Safe deposit box. But it also felt like rendition. Dylan way outdoors, conditional. She can read the pressure in his posture. You're allowing about her, she says gently. I'm allowing about everything, he admits. It all happens so presto. The letter. The choker. RJ. You and me. Dylan studies him carefully, however. Also do not let pride stop you from chancing out. If there's commodity you do not understand. Her maturity surprises him. Back at Forrester, Forrester approaches Electra with quiet determination. He tells her he's spoken to Product about conforming her schedule so she doesn't have to interact with Will for many days. She looks at him sprucely. You did that without asking me?